the Madman! On the very special day of RASTAKHAN'S Rumble review, this time around, we have 21 cards due to 3 days of accumulation. Let's jump right into it, starting with Akali the Rhino. 8 mana, 5/5. It's the Warrior Legendary Loa card. Rush, overkill, draw a rush minion, and give it +5/+5. A lot of people look at this card initially and are like, haha, 8 mana, 5/5, haha, hand buff. And just dismiss this card, but it's different in not one, not two, but 3 different ways. Number 1, it's a hand buff card that's fast already. 8 mana, 5/5 rush, so it'll immediately deal with something. Number 2, instead of just hand buffing a card, it draws a card from your deck and hand buffs that, so that's why it's notably different than Don Honcho. It actually gives you a card advantage. Number 3, the card you draw is also guaranteed to be fast with rush, and that's going to definitely take out something since the card is going to be not just rush, not just fast, but also big. And you might argue, but rush decks are nowhere near competitive. That's where you're wrong. One of the designers on the Hearthstone team, Ixar, has actually been putting on some very good performances with a low-key rush deck. Not to mention, of course, that drawing Zilliax is very strong due to lifesteal rush being very good. This could seriously work. Speaking of rush, Druid gets a Stampeding Roar. Spell, 6 mana. Summon a random beast from your hand and give it rush. This card is kind of the flip side of a card that is cheating mana, but not in a good way. The reason why this isn't good is because Possessed Lackey is almost guaranteed to summon you something good from your deck, not from your hand. This card requires you to both have the beast in your hand as well as the card itself, so it's card disadvantage, but it's not just that, it can't be played unless you have the beast you want to summon in your hand. The other problem with it is it costs 6 mana in order to cheat the card that's already in your hand out. So it's kind of like an Innervate if you're counting this as summoning something with 8 mana. Then you start to see, wait a second, I can just wait until 8. Yeah, I could give it rush, but is that really that big a deal? Whereas Innervate is a card that was good between turns 0 to like whenever. Stampeding Roar is almost only good at exactly turn 6 and then maybe 7, and then at 8 it's like, oh, I'm so close to playing the card itself, like, why? So that's why Stampeding Roar is going to be really bad. Master's Call for Hunter. 3 mana spell, discover a minion from your deck, draw all 3 cards if they are 3 beasts. So a few things that I'm going to clarify about this card, and there are apparently debates on Reddit about what in the world this even means. Discover in the past has generally said discover a copy. This particular card says discover a minion and not a copy of a minion. So I believe that even if you're only getting one thing from your deck, that you are just drawing it from your deck. Anyways, if you play this and you have all beasts, you're drawing the 3 beasts from your deck, which is really good. 3 mana draw 3 is really good, especially since the 3 cards you're drawing are all proactive beasts. They're all cards that you should be putting into your mid-range hunter deck anyways. I think this might create a new archetype in which you are running pretty much exactly only beasts. By the way, Subject 9 being a beast is suddenly very relevant. Maybe we're gonna see a mashup of Subject 9 and Master's Call. Hunter has always lacked card draw, and this is the fuel that mid-range hunter might need to be great. War Druid Loti is Druid's legendary minion. 3 mana, 1/2. I mean, not that that matters. Choose one, transform into one of Loti's 4 dinosaur forms. Hot form, get a 1/6. Spell damage form, get a 1/4, spell damage +1. Rush form, 4/2 rush. And poison form, 1/2 stealth. And this card really, above all, emphasizes the flexibility of the Druid class. And I would say that the flexibility of this card outweighs the fact that individually in all the forms, they're cards that have never been played. But the fact that the card is designed to shapeshift to transform into whatever card is good in that specific situation is so big. The taunt is so good against aggressive decks. The spell damage is so good when you specifically have Swipe in your hand and the board is right. The Poisonous is so good when you're up against Even Lock and you want to one-shot their Giant or Twilight Drake. The Rush form is just generally good. It's like the default choice, I think. 3 mana deal 4. So, Druid, it turns out, didn't get nothing in this expansion. I would argue that War Druid Loti is a good addition and certainly worth considering to any Druid deck that is not running Oaken Summons. Big Bad Voodoo. 2 mana Shaman card, give a friendly minion Death Rattle, summon a random minion that costs 1 more. It's basically Ancestral Spirit, but a little bit different. Instead of resummoning the minion, you are getting a random minion that costs 1 more. Big Bad Voodoo is similar, but different in that you want to put it on a weak minion, which has a high mana cost, specifically high battle cry effects, or stuff like that, or death rattles, or whatnot. But ultimately, this seems a bit too slow. Just run Unstable Evolution. Proud Roaster! 7 mana, 7/4 dragon. Battle Cry, if you're holding a dragon, deal 7 damage to an enemy minion. So over this weekend and the day, a bunch of dragon-related cards have been revealed, which are looking really promising for a dragon deck. But this card looks like it could definitely make it into Dragon Warrior. It's kind of like Blazecaller, except instead of having to have played an elemental the last turn, you just have to be holding a dragon, which is generally a lot easier. Basically, Battlecry destroy an enemy minion, and importantly, it itself is a dragon, which enables other dragon-related cards. It's also odd, which might mean that an odd Dragon Warrior deck could be possible, especially when we consider the Execute Dragon Lover to be odd. But I myself think that it's looking to shape up more towards a not odd deck, because you probably want to run Warmaster Voon, and you probably want to run the 2 mana 2/2 Discover a spell if you're holding a dragon card too. Proud Roaster, good addition to that deck. We'll see if there's another dragon revealed, but I feel like this deck is just one good dragon, if even that, away from a good dragon deck. Importantly, Ember Skilldrake, I think, is the card that ties this all together. This is a very important dragon, which is a 5 mana 5/5, which helps out with other dragon synergies too. Battlecry, if you're holding a dragon, gain 5 armor. Really efficient when you play this. It's shield mated in a previous meta, an extremely good card for 1 less mana. And you might look at it as a drawback that you have to be holding a dragon to have the armor, and yes, that's basically what justifies the 1 lower mana cost, but at the same time, it itself is a dragon, which is seriously helping out those other efficient cards that you could put in this deck, which want you to be holding a dragon. So this is like the gateway card, which kind of allows the dragons to work for Warrior, I feel. If we were looking for just 1 more dragon to enable this entire Dragon Warrior list, I feel like this dragon is it, but we're greedy, and we're going to hold out for even more, and we're going to be like, Dragon Warrior is 1 card away from being really good. Like, right now, it's pretty close. Next up for Hunter, Bloodscalp Strategist. 3 mana 2/4 Battlecry, if you have a weapon equipped, discover a spell. My general idea is that this is about equivalent to draw a card, which means it's like a 3 mana Gnomish Inventor, which is really strong. The drawback is you have to have a weapon equipped, but the good news is there's Candle Shot and there's Eaglehorn Bow, of which they're all strong cards, so you could run all 4 of those cards, and then Bloodscalp Strategist is going to hit a lot of the time. I'd just say, in short, really strong card if you're running 4 weapons in your Hunter deck. Elemento Evocation is Mage's 0 mana spell. The next elemental you play this turn costs 2 less. I've played a decent amount of Elemental Mage, and every single time I was in the situation of, geez, I have way too much value, but I keep dying to these aggressive decks. And Elemental Evocation really helps you against that specific weakness. If these elementals could just come out a bit earlier, they could contest the board a little bit faster against these aggressive decks, and then you could start controlling the board faster. Well yeah, this into Tar Creeper really shuts down aggressive decks. Innervate was such a strong card that I got nerfed from 2 to 1 extra mana. Elemental Evocation, therefore, was a card that Blizzard clearly printed in order to push this archetype. Sightless Ranger, 5 mana, 3/4 rush, overkill summon 2 1/1 bats. Reminds me a lot of Feeding Time from Warlock. A little bit better sometimes when you're dealing 2 damage to a 3/2. You get the situation where you have a 3/1, a 1/1, and a 1/1. That's pretty specific. Seems bad. Captain Hooktusk. Rogue Legendary Pirate, 8 mana, 6/3. Battlecry summon 3 pirates from your deck. Give them Rush. When Ticket Scalper came out, there was a bunch of theory of, man, if we could give this card Rush, it would be insane. But here's the problem. You have to specifically get Ticket Scalper, which seems to be the only good card that's pirate that's worthwhile to pull from the Hooktusk currently. That's the big problem. We'll see if there are other big pirates that are going to be revealed, but if they are, Captain Hooktusk could be looking pretty decent. If there aren't, then Captain Hooktusk will be Captain Hookdust. Priest gets Seance, a 2 mana spell. Choose a minion, add a copy of it to your hand. A strictly upgraded version of Convert, which is good because Convert was never played. Seance, unlike Convert, can hit both your minions as well as the opponent's minions. So this is kind of a replacement to Zola for Priest. Seance can do it for 1 mana cheaper. You don't really care too much about the 3 mana 2/2 body. There's also other things you can do with it, such as maybe running a Radiant, Elemental, and Lyra farm. And it's also flexible. Sometimes seancing the opponent's minion turns out to be a really good play. So at the very least, it seems like Seance will have some amount of impact when you are playing specifically Quest Priest. You could, with Zola and 2 Seance, be sitting on potentially 4 full heals back up to 40. That's an interesting idea. Gonk the Raptor. It's the Druid legendary Loa. So indeed, the Loa as expected does synergize with attacking with your hero. 7 mana 4/9 beast. After your hero attacks and kills a minion, it may attack again. So though it does synergize with attacking minions with your hero, boy is this really underpowered. 7 mana for 13 stats. For good vanilla stat line, I would expect something like 7 mana for 17 stats. So it's like, it lost 4 stats in order to have this ability. And how are we going to use this ability? Well, I mean, since we already paid 7 mana for it, the best you can probably do is use your Death Knight +3, and then you can attack however many times you want with +3 attack. And oof, that's painful. With 8 out of 10 Druid cards already revealed for the expansion, I am not very optimistic about attack power Druid, which is fine, I guess. Druid does have a lot of archetypes already, so this seems to be the set in which Druid is the loser. Womp womp womp. Next up, Bog Slosher. 3 mana 3/3, Battlecry, return a friendly minion to your hand and give it +2/+2 for a Shaman. Some people immediately outcried, oh my god, this was Shudderwock, OP, OP. And yes, this guy can be put into the Battlecry pool, though unlike Grumble, it will not give a 1 cost of Shudderwock, it'll give a 9 cost. Which leads me to believe that this card may be more suited to the Battlecry mid-range Shaman version of Shudderwock versus the combo version. Because yes, you could have always run Youthful Brewmaster in your Shudderwock deck, but nobody chose to do that. This card is very similar to Youthful Brewmaster. For 1 mana more, it gains 1 extra health, and importantly, it gives your minion +2/+2. Especially good when you turn your Serenite Chain Gang, because having 2 4/5s is really good for 4 mana. With Taunt, also. We know that from playing Warlock. The Undertaker. 8 mana, 8/5 neutral. Battlecry gained the Death Rattle effects of 3 friendly minions that died this game. A lot of hype on this one. Probably mainly because it seems to fit right into Death Rattle Hunter. Summon a 5/5, and with the Spider Bombs, destroy a random enemy minion. So if we evaluate this card at roughly having one of each of those, that's an 8 mana 8/5 Death Rattle, summon a 5/5, Death Rattle, destroy a random enemy minion, which looks pretty reasonably good for 8 mana. There are some dreams of this card where you're copying Hadronox and Astral Tiger, and you can go infinite, or you can copy Paladin's Prelate and stack even more death rattles on the Undertaker, and have it come back and then stack even more buffs. Those might be a bit too ambitious of plans. Sounds more like memes to me. Linecracker, a big 7 mana 5/10 minion, overkill, double this minion's attack. The card's obviously pretty solid, just big 15 statted card for 7 mana with a decent bonus. The problem is basically it's too slow for its mana cost. There are no 7 mana cards that are currently played that don't have an immediate effect on the game. There are in fact just no cards that are 7 or higher that don't have an immediate effect on the game. Sleepy Dragon is as close as you can get with its taunt, but everything else has like a battle cry or a death rattle, or immediately draws you a card or something. Linecracker, it's just effectively a 7 mana 5 turn the turn you play it. So if they can remove it efficiently at less than 7, which a lot of decks can, then Linecracker was not a very good play. And that's why Linecracker will probably be delegated to a good card in Arena. Bandrudge, 3 mana 3/3 for Priest. Whenever you cast a spell, summon a 1/1 zombie with taunt, very similar to Violet Teacher, except it comes out a turn earlier, and the students basically protect the teacher itself, which is a nice way to sustain itself. Priest hasn't really been known for casting very many spells because their spells turn to be reactive rather than proactive, but Sandrudge is a step in the direction of proactively wanting to cast spells for Priest. We'll see whether or not that works out. Gonna have to see the rest of the Priest spell list and whatnot. One of the cheap spells that Priest is getting is Regenerate, a 0 mana activator for the Sandrudge or for other spells, spell lovers like Lyra. Restore 3 health. That's a kind of substantial thing to do on just 0 mana. Looks like it's handy, might make for some sort of combination, and looks like it needs to be combined with something in order to be good, and we're gonna have to see if a Lyra based deck or a Akanai based deck will be successful. Mosh Ogg, Announcer, 5 mana 6/5. Enemies attacking this have a 50% chance to attack someone else. Valid attacks for this are always the enemy minions or the enemy hero itself. So it's not like you're gonna hit your own stuff when you're attacking the Mosh Ogg Announcer. I think this card is best compared with my baseline of what vanilla stats would you need in order to be played and constructed right now. My theory is you need around a 5 mana 6/7. Yes, that's basically Boulder Fist Ogre. I think if Boulder Fist Ogre were 5 mana, it might see play in the meta. So the upside of it is the 5 mana 6 attack minion, which is a lot. And it's also naturally tough because sometimes when your opponent's trying to clear it, they're gonna miss. The main problem is that spells don't have the same downside of killing the announcer. And even against minion combat, yeah, sometimes they're gonna miss, but sometimes they're gonna hit. And they can usually trade effectively against the 6/5 for 5 also. I mean, the big card that you do want to also compare this is with Cobalt Scalebane. And I think when I compare it with Cobalt Scalebane, I'm more inclined to call this card, okay, it's not good enough. Cobalt Scalebane is a 8/5 for 5, which has continuously good effects. Mark the Loa for a Druid. Continuing the Druid doesn't get much good stuff. You're choosing to either give a minion +2/+4 and taunt, which is arguably worth 3 mana, and summon 2/3/2 Raptors, which is, I'd say, a little bit inferior to Serenite Chaingang. The Landscaping card didn't see much play at 3 mana summon 2/2/2s. So it seems pretty easy to say that Mark of the Loa won't be good. And finally we have Snapjaw Shellfighter, a 5 mana 3/8. Whenever an adjacent minion takes damage, this minion takes it instead. Very similar to both, except instead of protecting your face, it protects minions. And that's really important because your face usually has 0 attack, whereas minions that Snapjaw Shellfighter is protecting will generally have an attack value. The higher the attack value of the minions, the better Snapjaw Shellfighter is, because if they're attacking like your 1/1 Silverhand Recruit, then that Silverhand Recruit is only dealing 1 damage, but the damage is being dealt to your Snapjaw Shellfighter. You want to be in a position where Snapjaw is ideally protected by either a big taunt or a taunt with poisonous. I was thinking this card might be good because You play this and then you play Stubborn Gastropod next to it. They have to just send minions to die to this snail while they have to deal with your 8 health minion. So it's kind of like gives plus 8 health to the snail and allows the snail to just kill everything. Good enough to just play on the board on 5, vanilla, and, you know, you can expect it to live. And then the turn after, you drop your Stubborn Gastropod, and then boom! I've mentioned that, like, I think about on 5 mana, like a 6-7 stat line would be good. This one has more health than the 7 health that I presented, and the ability is interestingly enough that, you know, this might pass the test to be constructed viable. Worth mentioning how this protects your board really well from area of effect also. Yes, your Snapjaw Shellfighter will probably die as a result, but the cards that are being protected by the Shellfighter won't. So a lot of interesting new space being explored here. Will any of these decks rise to glory? Elemental Mage, Dragon Warrior, Rush Warrior, Beast Hunter? Well, you'll have to stay tuned and find out. That's good enough. Don't edit it to make me look dumb.